When my brother looked me dead in the eye and said, "This is a high-class wedding, Clara, not a farmer's gathering," I didn't argue. I just smiled, nodded, and said nothing. 3 days later, his dream wedding fell apart before the vows were even spoken. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Clara, I'm 30 years old, and I've always been the kind of person who believes family should come before everything. I grew up on our family's small farm, the kind of place where your hands are always a little rough from work, but your heart stays soft. My parents used to say I got my determination from my late dad. He could fix a tractor engine with one hand and make soup for the neighbors with the other. My older brother, Ethan, was different. He hated dirt, hated sweat, and hated anything that didn't shine. He used to joke that I smelled like soil and success couldn't grow from mud. Back then, I laughed it off. He was my big brother, after all, and teasing was his love language, or so I told myself. As adults, our paths split completely. I stayed in town, turning my father's old produce stand into a thriving organic brand. Ethan moved to the city, working in finance and chasing every spotlight that made him look richer than he was. When he announced his engagement to Tiffany, a woman with perfect hair, perfect teeth, and a perfect talent for looking down on people, I tried to be happy for him. Really, I did. I even offered to supply locally grown flowers for their ceremony. Tiffany smiled politely, then said, "Oh, that's sweet. But we're going for something a little more upscale." I remember blinking back the sting of that. Upscale. As if I wasn't good enough to stand next to my own brother on his wedding day. A few weeks later, I found out from our mother that the rehearsal dinner guest list didn't include me. "It must be a mistake," I said, trying to sound calm. "Ethan would never leave me out." But when I called him, his tone was sharp and impatient. "Clara, look. Tiffany and I are doing a very elegant event. Her family's from old money, and we just want everything to be perfect. You understand, right?" "I don't, actually," I said quietly. "I'm your sister." There was a pause, then his sigh, long, dramatic, annoyed. "Clara, it's not personal. It's just, we can't have your farm friends around the guests. This is a high-class wedding, not a farmer's gathering." I don't even remember what I said next, probably nothing. My throat burned and my chest felt hollow, like he'd scooped the air right out of me. That night, I sat alone on my porch, watching the lights of my greenhouse shimmer in the distance. All I could hear were his words, over and over again. Not a farmer's gathering. I'd worked my entire life for what I had: late nights, early mornings, lifting boxes heavier than myself, selling produce at local fairs, smiling through exhaustion. And yet to him, all of it was nothing more than dirt under his polished shoes. The worst part? My mother defended him. "You know how Ethan gets," she said. "He's under stress. Weddings are expensive." He didn't mean it. Didn't mean it. That was the family motto whenever Ethan did something cruel. He didn't mean to call me names. He didn't mean to borrow money and never pay it back. He didn't mean to forget my birthday 3 years in a row. But this time, something shifted inside me. I wasn't angry, at least not in the way I used to be. It was a quiet kind of anger, the kind that doesn't shout or cry. The kind that watches, waits, and remembers. The next day, I drove into the city to drop off some produce at a restaurant I supplied. While I was waiting at the back entrance, I heard someone call my name. "Clara? Clara Hensley?" I turned and there stood Jordan, an old friend from high school. He used to work summers on our farm before moving on to event catering. We hugged, laughed, caught up. When he mentioned his new job, I nearly dropped my basket. He was working for Tiffany and Ethan's wedding. "I shouldn't say much," he said, lowering his voice. "But it's been a nightmare. Your brother's been throwing money around he doesn't even have. The ven is threatening to cancel if they don't get their next payment." I blinked. "Cancel?" "Yeah," Jordan said. "Apparently, Tiffany's counting on some sponsorship deals to cover the costs. But if those fall through," he whistled softly, "let's just say it's not looking good." I thanked him and drove home in silence, my mind spinning. I didn't plan to do anything at first. But the more I thought about it, the insult, the years of dismissal, the more I realized karma didn't always come naturally. Sometimes it needed a little help. That evening, as I walked through the rows of tomatoes in my greenhouse, I replayed Ethan's voice in my head. "This is a high-class wedding, not a farmer's gathering." And I whispered to the plants, "Then let's see how high that class stands when the ground starts shaking." I wasn't plotting vengeance. Not exactly. I was simply done being the one who swallowed my pride to keep the peace. I'd spent years apologizing for his behavior, making excuses for his arrogance, even paying one of his overdue bills once because he forgot. But not anymore. The air that night felt different, thick with the scent of change. My phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Hey, I found something you might want to know. Call me." I stared at the screen for a long moment before dialing. "Clara," he said, his voice hushed but excited. "You won't believe this. There's something shady going on with Tiffany's sponsors. One of them is pulling out because of a fake financial document, signed by Ethan." For the first time in a long while, I felt that calm, quiet smile spread across my face. Maybe the soil wasn't so low-class after all. Maybe it was where the real power grew. And as I hung up the phone, I whispered to myself, let's see what happens when the roots fight back. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, staring at the soft glow of my phone screen. Jordan's words replayed in my mind, a fake financial document signed by Ethan. I couldn't ignore it anymore. My brother wasn't just arrogant, he was reckless. And this time, he was about to drag everyone down with him. I got dressed, made myself coffee, and sat by the kitchen window as the first light stretched across the fields. It's funny how quiet mornings can feel like they're whispering to you. That morning, the silence didn't feel peaceful, it felt like preparation. By 8 a.m., I was at my computer, doing what I did best: research. I looked up the wedding venue, the catering company, the sponsorship pages, everything. It didn't take long before I noticed patterns that didn't add up. Payments were overdue. Suppliers hadn't received deposits. The wedding planner's assistant had even posted online about difficult clients with champagne tastes and soda budgets. And right there, in one tagged photo, was Ethan and Tiffany, smiling wide, pretending everything was perfect. For years, I'd accepted that Ethan saw me as beneath him. But in that moment, something inside me shifted from hurt to clarity. This wasn't just about being excluded anymore. It was about watching people like him get away with everything: lies, manipulation, cruelty, and believing they'd never face consequences. Well, not this time. I didn't plan to ruin the wedding, but the truth has a way of burning through lies all on its own. So I called Jordan. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "You said one of the sponsors was pulling out." "Yeah," he said. "They realized the bank statement your brother sent was doctored. Someone caught the error before it went through. They're furious. Apparently, they've got connections with the venue too." A slow smile crept onto my face. "Jordan, would it be terrible if I sent them some additional information?" He hesitated. "What kind of information?" "Oh, just a few receipts, screenshots, and maybe a voice recording or two," I said sweetly. You see, Ethan had a bad habit of boasting. He'd call me after a few drinks, rambling about deals he was manipulating or how easily people bought his lies. I used to delete those voicemails, but something made me start saving them just in case. That just in case had arrived. Within an hour, I compiled everything: voice notes, text messages, photos, even the invoice where Ethan listed me as a donor for a business trip I never agreed to fund. Then I forwarded it all anonymously to the email Jordan provided for the sponsors and venue management. I didn't need to sign my name. The facts spoke for themselves. By evening, the first cracks started showing. My mom called, her voice trembling. "Clara, did you hear? The hotel's threatening to cancel Ethan's booking unless they pay in full tonight." I feigned surprise. "Oh no, really? They're saying something about fake documents. But that's impossible. Ethan said everything was settled." I bit back a laugh. "Maybe you should ask him again." After we hung up, I sat on my porch, watching the sun dip below the fields. The fireflies flickered like tiny warning lights, and for once, I felt no guilt. For years I'd been made to feel small, invisible. But the truth was shining now, and it was blinding. 2 days later, the chaos began. Tiffany called my mother in tears. Half the vendors had pulled out. The luxury cake designer, the photographer, even the string quartet, all gone. She'd accused Ethan of lying to her about his finances. Word had spread fast, especially among the city's elite circles. Nobody wanted to be associated with a scandal. Meanwhile, Ethan called me 6 times in one day. I didn't answer. Finally, he texted, "I know you had something to do with this. You've always been jealous." Jealous. That word almost made me laugh out loud. Jealous of what? His crumbling image? His fake wealth? His shallow fiancé? Still, I didn't respond. Silence, I realized, was far more powerful than any argument. That night, I got another call, this time from Jordan. His voice was shaky, but excited. "Clara, you're not going to believe this. The venue just cancelled completely. Someone leaked those voice recordings online. Ethan's reputation is toast. I froze. Leaked? I didn't. I know you didn't, he said quickly. But someone from the sponsor company probably did. It's all over social media now. I opened my laptop, and sure enough, there it was, a trending post titled, "Finance Bro Lies to Luxury Venue Gets Exposed Before His Wedding." The comments were brutal. People had found Tiffany's Instagram, mocking her for her high-class attitude. I should have felt sorry for them, but I didn't. Instead, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. But peace doesn't last long in a storm. The next day, my mother showed up at my house, tears streaming down her face. "Clara, please, you have to talk to your brother. The wedding's ruined. He's saying people are sabotaging him." I leaned against the porch rail, my arms crossed. "Mom," he said, "I didn't belong there." Maybe the universe agreed. Her jaw dropped. "How can you be so cruel?" "Cruel?" I repeated softly. "You know what's cruel? Being told your own blood isn't good enough to stand beside you. Watching him throw away everything for pride." "I didn't ruin his wedding." "He did." She left without another word. Later that evening, I got a final text from Ethan: "Congratulations. You got what you wanted. Hope you're happy." I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at my desk, staring at the old photo of us as kids: Ethan holding a toy car, me holding a basket of strawberries. Back then, he used to call me Sunshine. Somewhere along the way, the shine faded. Still, as much as he deserved what happened, I couldn't shake the ache in my chest. This wasn't revenge, it was justice. And sometimes, justice doesn't feel as sweet as you'd expect. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Ethan. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I answered. "Hi," a man said, his voice calm and professional. "This is Martin Green from Sterling Events. We heard you might be able to help us with something. We're planning a large charity gala, and your farm's flowers were recommended as a potential supplier." I blinked, stunned. Sterling Events was the top-tier event company in the city. As he continued explaining the details, a slow, steady smile spread across my face. It looked like one door had slammed shut for Ethan only to open wide for me. And as I hung up the call, I couldn't help whispering, "Not bad for a farmers' gathering, huh?" But I had no idea that Ethan's collapse wasn't over yet. What happened next would expose something far bigger than a cancelled wedding. And trust me, you won't believe who called me next. 3 days after the call from Sterling Events, I was knee-deep in flowers: white roses, lavender sprigs, and soft pink peonies, preparing samples for their upcoming charity gala. It felt surreal. 1 week ago, I'd been crying over my brother's cruel words. Now, the same farmer's daughter he mocked was arranging flowers for the kind of event he used to brag about attending. Still, I couldn't shake the tension in my chest. I hadn't heard from Ethan since the text that ended with "Hope you're happy." For all his arrogance, he was still my brother. A small part of me wished he'd learned something from this mess, not out of spite, but so maybe one day he could grow up. But fate, as always, had other plans. That Friday evening, as I was cleaning up the shop, my phone buzzed. It was Jordan. "Clara," he said, his voice low. "You might want to sit down." "Why? What happened?" "Ethan's been exposed again. Turns out, the wedding wasn't the only thing he lied about." I froze, wiping my hands on my apron. "What do you mean?" "Someone leaked his business records. His company's under investigation for tax fraud. Apparently, he's been moving money through Tiffany's accounts for months. And get this, she's turned on him completely." My breath caught. "Oh my God." "Yeah," Jordan sighed. "The media's all over it. The same blogs that posted about the wedding collapse just dropped screenshots of bank transfers, emails, everything. It's bad." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at the fading light outside my shop window. I hadn't planned for this. I only wanted the truth about the wedding to come out, not to destroy his life completely. But then again, maybe that was the universe's way of balancing things. I think Jordan hung up and sat down on the old wooden stool by the counter. The silence in my flower shop felt heavy. I thought about all those years of being looked down on, how Ethan would laugh when I showed up to family dinners still in my work clothes, smelling of soil and lilacs. He'd say things like, "Clara, you really should do something more respectable with your life. Nobody cares about your little flower thing." And Mom would always laugh along. But the funny thing was, my little flower thing was about to become the very thing that saved me. Because a week later, Sterling Events signed an exclusive contract with me. My floral business, Wild Bloom Designs, was now their official event supplier. My income tripled in a month. I hired 2 assistants, expanded my shop, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Meanwhile, Ethan's world was crumbling. Tiffany broke off the engagement and deleted every photo of them online. His company partners resigned. And one afternoon, while arranging roses for a wedding at the Sterling Hall, I saw him standing on the other side of the street, looking completely lost. He was thinner, pale, and his expensive suit looked out of place against the chaos around him. When our eyes met, he gave a small, defeated nod. I didn't return it. For a second, I felt a twinge of pity. But then I remembered his words: this isn't a farmer's gathering. He'd built his life on pretending to be better than everyone. The truth was, he just forgot that real worth doesn't come from a bank account, it comes from who you are when everything else is stripped away. That night, Mom called again. Her tone was softer this time. Clara, your brother's not doing well. The press won't leave him alone. He's lost everything. Maybe you could talk to him? He needs family right now. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said gently, you know, Mom, when I needed family, you told me to stay quiet. Maybe silence is what he needs now. She didn't respond. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by vases and petals. I looked at a framed picture on my desk, me and Ethan as kids, sitting on the barn roof, legs swinging, laughing about nothing. I smiled sadly. Revenge isn't always about rage or destruction. Sometimes it's just about letting someone face the truth they've run from all their lives. A month later, Sterling Events hosted their biggest charity gala of the year. I was personally invited to attend as a guest, not just the florist. I wore a sleek, emerald green dress, my hair curled, my confidence blooming like the roses I'd arranged that night. When I walked into the ballroom, people greeted me warmly. You're Clara from Wild Bloom Designs, right? Your work is stunning. It felt like everything had come full circle. And then, as fate would have it, I saw him again, Ethan. He was standing near the entrance, in a wrinkled suit, working as an assistant for the catering company. Our eyes met across the room. His expression was a mix of shock and regret. He didn't need to say a word. I walked past him slowly, my heels clicking on the marble floor. As I passed, I leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "Welcome to the farmers' gathering." He froze. I didn't look back. The next morning, I opened my flower shop to find a small envelope on the doorstep. Inside was a note, short, written in Ethan's handwriting. You were right. I forgot where we came from. I'm sorry. And for the first time, I felt something soften inside me. I placed the note between the pages of an old book and whispered to myself, maybe that's enough. Because revenge doesn't always have to end in fire and fury. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is success, silence, and self-respect. And as I locked up the shop that night, I smiled. This farmer's daughter didn't just rise above, she bloomed.